Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to a brand new video. In this one, I want to talk about why I just spent, in the month of May, which I think we're only 14 days into May, so it's May 14th. And in this month, I've spent over $2,000 on courses, on self-education, and I want to explain my thought process behind that and why it is that an 18-year-old kid should be spending that amount of money and why I believe that more people need to think this way, right? I just spent the amount of money on education and on courses, on, content generation and traffic and funnels and sales and as well e-commerce. As I think a little bit of consulting in there as well. So a blend of things that I want to get good at. I spent the amount of money learning those as some kids do on their first car. And I could have very well gotten out and bought a first car, but I'd rather buy this education. I'd rather buy this assurance of, my growth. So I want to explain my thought process, and as well I want to explain my experience with it, and I want to explain sort of 6 points specifically why I believe that more people should be doing this, as well as how it's affected me. So let's get into the video. So the number one reason why I believe I invested so much money into various courses is because I understand that I don't know everything. So I know enough to know that I don't know what I don't know, right? And so that's a beautiful thing because it forces you to a space of humility, right? I've been reading a book recently called Ego is the Enemy, where in which it talks about how your ego is going to forever limit you to only knowing so much about certain topics, because your ego will always come in and say, hey, you're perfect, you're awesome, you don't need to do anything more, you don't need to grow, you don't need to work, you don't need to sharpen yourself at all, you're already there, just kick your feet up and relax, right? Which is something that I could very well do right now with the amount of money that I'm making in the business setup that I have. My ego could come in and say at any time, look, time to kick back, right? So I have to fight that, and the best way for me to fight that, I believe, is to invest time and money into growing, which is, again, comes back to why I spent so much. So point number one is that I know enough to know that I don't know what I don't know, which is a blessing and a curse, right? Because it keeps you from growing, but it also allows you to grow. It's a really interesting cycle. I believe that more people need to be more self-aware in this way and know what they don't know and not allow ego to sort of rub warm butter on their back and keep them from growing. Reason number two is I'm a firm believer that self-investment of any kind, whether it's time, whether it's money, is the only route to success. It's the only route to success, real success, not success that has been handed to you, but real long-term success. A mentor of mine at one point in my sort of journey told me you can buy success. You can up and just buy it. There's nothing stopping you from buying success. And my question was, how on earth does that work? There's no way on earth. You're speaking gibberish to me. If I could buy success, I would have already bought 6 of them by now. I think I was like 16 years old or something. And he told me, well, listen, if you want to be successful, the best way to be successful is to surround yourself with people who are doing what you'd like to be doing, whether it's financial or, emotional, whether it's spiritual, whether it's, health-wise. If you want to be healthy, you surround yourself with healthy people and you learn from them. So if you want to be successful financially, you buy the time of people who are successful financially. There's nothing wrong with spending $200 to get on the phone with somebody for an hour and say, here's what I have for you, here's the questions I have, what can you do for me? Or $1,000 or $2,000. I know people personally who charge over $5,000 for an hour-long coaching session for somebody for their business, right? Those are consultants. They make a lot of money and they serve people very, very well. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So you can buy success, and knowing this as a truth in my head, I was like, okay, I would like to be successful, specifically in the area. Let's say one of the courses was a consulting course. I'd like to do more consulting for small businesses, for this audience. I'd like to be a better consultant and help people in this way. So instead of spending years learning myself and experimenting and failing and trying over and over again and hitting this learning curve, right, that slowly rises up, I was like, no, I'm just going to spend, a bit of money and just go from here to here instantly, because I now have the knowledge. And if I apply that knowledge, this learning curve no longer exists. It's sort of more like this now. It just sort of kind of happens because I'm having the input of people who know more than me. So I'm buying success. Point number two, you can buy success. So point number three, and this is actually a really interesting one. This is sort of a psychological one. You guys know that I like to take things in a sort of psychological route and talk a lot more about psychology on this channel. If I were to go to college, which I'm not planning on it currently, I would go for psychology because I would love to understand the human mind. But one thing that I do know about psychology is that when anybody invests a certain amount of time or money or invests any piece of themselves which they can't get back after they've invested it, money included, into a project, then they instantly become they view that project differently. They now view that project in a different light. They say, okay, this is now important to me, and I view it differently. So for myself specifically, I spent, $2,000 or plus, actually a bit more than $2,000 on business education, specifically sales training, consulting, and e-commerce. I think that's the good way to narrow it down into things that I'm learning. And so after I did that, not only do I view that business side differently, but I view the rest of myself differently. I've spent this amount of money on self-education, and ever since, dude, my life is tidier. I wake up happier. I've slept happier. My room is cleaner, right? I'm better with people. I'm a better person because I can look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm the type of person to invest in myself, and I'm the type of person who has drive enough to spend a pretty substantial amount of money learning things that other people might not ever understand that I know are valuable. It's you view yourself differently. It's not an ego thing, it's a confidence thing. There's a difference between ego and confidence. The difference is ego pulls you down, confidence drives you up, right? And so now I have confidence in these abilities, and I have confidence in myself in a new way that I can take and apply to my business in ways that I don't even understand yet. It's only been a couple days. So point number 3 is when you invest money into your education and you invest money into yourself, you view yourself differently, hands down, every time. And point number 4, which could probably be considered point 3.5, right, would be it sort of opens the floodgates for future self-investments, right? So, if you view yourself differently, then you allow yourself to invest in yourself more in the future. So this $2,000 that I've spent in the past couple days is one thing, but what it means is I'm gonna have the mindset of growth and this mindset of self-investment that's gonna allow me to spend a lot more money in the future without really having the guilt or the shame of doing it, right? So that first $100 that you spend on a course, guaranteed you're gonna buy another one, and then another one, and then another one, right? You'll get addicted to that growth process, which is something that you really want to train your brain to do. You want to love that growth. You want to love that uphill climb. And so as I've spent this amount of money, I know that sometime in my future, at some point, it's a given. I'm going to spend $5,000 on a piece of education, or $10,000 to hop on the phone with somebody, or something along those lines, right? It is a reality that I understand is true. By the time that I'm 20, I'm probably going to have spent $50,000 on self-education, because I know, not only do I know that that's going to grow me, but I know that it's going to make me money in return. If I apply all the things, get this, if I applied literally everything, which is impossible to do, by the way, but if I applied literally everything that I'm learning in these courses that I've just purchased, and I take them and I put them into action in every single possible way within my business, I will guaranteed make $1 million by the time I'm 20. This is valuable stuff, right? Undeniably valuable. Not only is the $2,000 bringing me information, but it's bringing me a shift in the way that I view myself. And I want to stop ranting now. I want to get on to the next point, but it's valuable. You have to understand the value of self-investment. Point number 5, and I know a lot of people get offended when people point this out, but people are willing to spend 40 grand plus on a college degree that doesn't really guarantee them a job. Why would you not spend $2,000 on various courses that directly apply to your situation that you can grow from? If I would spend, if I'm gonna spend 2 grand, right? And I know that it's gonna make me money. Hands down, it's gonna make me money. There's not a single piece of doubt in my mind that it's gonna make me money, because I trust my discipline enough that I know that I'll apply the things that I'm learning. Whereas with a college degree, there's not really a guarantee. It's kind of just like a piece of paper, and you can leverage it to land a job, but there's no, for one, there's no real guarantee that that job will exist 5 years from now. There's also no guarantee that your specialization will matter anymore. It might get outsourced, right? There's no guarantee with that 40 grand. And so, there's some majors, gotta respect them. There's some out there that are just incredibly valuable, and I look for people with that major when I hire them, right? Like my accounting people, right? They have to, major in accounting. I'm not gonna hire somebody who didn't major in accounting and not hire, they have to major in accounting. But with that being said, there are some degrees out there that just don't bring that level of value. And there are people that are willing to spend 40, 50, 60 grand and not guarantee themselves the money back in any way and live in debt for years, probably till they retire, right? And so I have no shame spending 2 grand. I have absolutely no shame spending 2 grand in about a week and a half, right? It's a good idea. So that's point number 5, is if, college age kids are willing to spend so much money on college, why should I have any guilt or sort of even any, what's the right word, any doubt in the value of $2,000 worth of courses and education that I know applies to my current situation. So that's point number 5. On to the final point, which is point number 6. Point number 6, I'm giving myself another reason to make this work. So by growing a business, I believe that growing a business is the safest way to make money, safer than getting a job, and I can make another video on that if you want me to. But by risking a little money, by saying, all right, I'm gonna put $2,000+ into this, into self-education, by doing that, I'm telling myself, if this doesn't work, all that money goes down the drain. All of it goes down the drain. And risk is a really, really smart motivator that you can place on yourself. Probably not on others, it's a little manipulative, but you can do it on yourself, right? Spend 10 grand on a piece of equipment for your business. Like, okay, be reasonable here, you know, spend the money that you can actually spend, but spend a lot of money giving yourself assets that you can leverage to make more money with, and the more money that you spend on that asset, the more likely it is to be leveraged, right? This education, this self-investment that I spent so much money on just now, it's gonna get leveraged, hands down. I just spent $2,000, which for a lot of kids is a lot of money. For myself, I'm blessed to say that it wasn't that much money, but it's still a lot of money. You keep proper perspective and you understand like $2,000 will feed some families on the other side of the planet for like a year, right? Like that's a lot of money. And I spent it on investing into my business. So if I don't get this to work and if I don't apply the things that I'm learning, then I'm risking $2,000. Like I'm literally gambling $2,000 if I don't apply the things that I'm learning. So I'm giving myself $2,000 worth of reassurance that I'm gonna make this business work and that I'm gonna make a lot of money doing it. And if you never spend that amount of money, if you never spend any money on self-investment, if you only go through free content, if you only go through free blog posts or YouTube videos or PDFs or whatever, trying to learn what you're trying to learn about online business or offline business or anything health, right? You'll never really reach the point of satisfaction, because when you spend money, when you spend real raw time, which is money, then you've told yourself, I'm gonna make this work. I'm going to make this work. And if it doesn't work, I've wasted, literally for me, that $2,000, you know, that's a decent chunk of my time. You know, if it's not money, it's time. And that's a decent chunk of my time that I've just put down the drain for no good reason. So that's the end of the video. I hope this sort of made you realize the sort of the brilliance in self-investment and why so many people share the self-investment mindset. It's really important to invest in yourself, and it's really important to recognize the value of doing it. Without it, I really don't believe I'd be where I'm at. Without it, I don't believe anybody that I look up to would be where they're at, right? People will spend 15 grand to go to a mastermind or a seminar, right? Some people have, you know, inner circle sort of mastermind type arenas or groups, right? Where people spend 40 grand a year just to be a part of the conversation. So, and those people all go on, like, for example, there's a handful of, I'm not going to name any names, but there's a handful of people that do this, and their students go on to become literal millionaires. And that's because they've spent the amount of money that they have to invest into it, right? And so then there's value, they place value on the things that they're learning. So if you are only going through free YouTube content, for example, let's apply this to dropshipping real quick, which I know is a primary focus on my channel. If you're only going through free YouTube content, if you are only viewing free YouTube content and you're not investing any money into courses, into education, then no duh that your dropshipping store isn't working, dude, because you're not really investing into this thing at all, right? If you only have 50 bucks to your name, spend at least 20 of it, you know? Spend a little bit of the money learning. Like, you have to, otherwise you won't attach value to the concept. 90% of the time, there's a 10% outlier, right? Some of the people, they're in a financial situation, they need money, so there's value attached because, again, there's risk like we talked about earlier. But for a lot of people, they don't really need the money, they just really want to have it, they want to build something bigger than themselves. And they're going through free YouTube content to do it. It's such a backwards thing to do. But there you go, that's why I spent $2,000 on self-education in the past 14, now like more like 10 days, really. It's you know, it's not been a whole lot of time. But honestly, I would do it again if I could. I would spend another 2 grand right now if it gave me, again, the amount of value that I've gotten from the content that I've gone through, as well as the mindset shift and everything that I talked about in this video. It's worth more than 2 grand, right? A lot of people would look at the amount of value that I just got from this 2 grand and they'd spend, you know, 50 grand. Like, a lot of people who are higher up in the world of business would spend a lot more money getting the amount of value that I got out of these courses because they recognize how important it is. So I'm gonna shut up now. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like down below if I brought you any value at all, and subscribe and turn on notifications as well using the little bell so that you can be notified when I upload. Sorry I didn't upload for a week there. It's because I was going through these courses and I was just deep into it. Like, I focused. There was like no distracting me. I was in these things and I was learning. But with that being said, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.